Good morning, guys. It is Monday. It is another start of a wonderful, wonderful week. I hope you guys had a great weekend and did something fun with your family. I actually have my own little tea set here. I am a huge fan of tea sets. They are their own form of culture, history, and artwork. So I made myself a nice little cup of tea this morning. All right, just wanted to show that to you guys. I got actually into teapots when I was in high school. I was very fortunate to take a ceramics class program for 4 years, get to a kind of advanced level where we were actually able to make things like teapots. And teapots have, again, an ancient history to them, a ton of culture from different parts of the world make different types of teapots. And in art scenes, so like in the ceramics world, there are all sorts of competitions centered around making teapots and tea sets. Well, that's a perfect temperature. We're going to take a sip. Oh, lovely. So lovely. Tea is a really great way to start off your day. It's actually something pretty fun to get into. If you Google or look at local tea shops in your town, obviously they're probably closed right now due to coronavirus, but there are some, usually in every town you can find some really cool tea shops where there's really interesting varieties. So I wanted to hop on in the morning right now because I wanted to have like a little morning story time. I think stories are an amazing way for us all to connect, to stay motivated, to get the day going, and remember that not only are all of us human beings that deserve, compassion and kindness, but that we're all connected too through these different stories. So one of the stories I wanted to start off with and tell you guys today, and again, feel free if you're watching on YouTube, we're going live on YouTube right now. We're going live on LinkedIn, and we're going live in some Facebook groups. If you guys have any questions, if you guys have any commentary, definitely please post it up. I always appreciate the engagement. Let's see, someone says, is the audio repeating or is it the connection? That would be awesome. Could people let me know on the audio? Are we doing okay? Or is there an echo of some sorts? I can always replug in my headset if there's any issues with the audio. What's up, James? How's it going? Let me know, guys. Are we good on the audio? Do I have to do some fiddling? How are we doing? The story, though, that I wanted to tell you guys today was probably one of the biggest business mistakes that I've ever made. And that was early on in the very beginning of my entrepreneurship career. Someone says audio is good. Awesome. Okay, cool. So this was early on with our first business, 2K diffuser beads. And we were doing really well, like surprisingly well. We came up with this idea for a product that we weren't really even making. Yes, we were putting it together. Technically, we were manufacturing it, but we were buying giant bags of airsoft BBs. And when I say giant bags, I mean each bag had about 250,000 of these airsoft BBs, in addition to all these other little random plastic parts that we ended up having to sort through. So as we scaled and started buying larger bulk of these airsoft BBs and then repackaging them into smaller jars to sell through our brand diffuser beads, what happened is the quality of the product diminished. And I'm sure this is something that other people have experienced probably with China factories or overseas factories as well, is that maybe the first samples were really, really good because they were made in a small batch with a lot more attention paid to them. And then you get the big bulk quantity and you're like, what is all this garbage that it came with? Or what are these defects? This is not how the original one was. And so we were spending, what we'd do is we'd take a giant, I have my husband Ben over here. I'm gonna ask a question. Ben, how big were those bins that we'd poured the beads into? You're good at approximating sizes, though. Like 6 feet, 4 feet by like 3 feet deep. Yeah, it was. So we bought these plastic bins. We went to the store, like to a container store, and bought the biggest bins we could find. It was like 4 feet by like 3 feet deep. So these really, really big bins, and it would take both of us to lift up and turn over these bags because they were really, really heavy, probably 80 plus pounds. And we dumped the entire thing of beads into this big clear bin, and then we would go through. And first, you could kind of see a lot of junk at the top, and you just hand grab it out, and then we'd have to sort it into smaller. So we had these smaller bins. Sometimes we use the empty containers from the small batches of airsoft BBs that we would buy, and we would scoop them in and just sort through, and then put the good beads into a small plastic jar that was our finished, product jar. And we would just spend hours and hours and hours doing this. So things were going pretty well. We were making in our mind, coming from literally being homeless, we were like, we're crushing it. We're making so much money. In reality, we were not making a lot of money. We were doing a lot of sales. Our first year we did, the first fiscal year. So we started in July. That, ending in December, we'd made about $70,000 in sales. Now, profit on that was probably anywhere from 10 to 35,000, depending on how you count profit. So again, because we were homeless, we had to invest a lot of money into kind of just our living situation to be less homeless, to be a bit more motivated. When we would get these orders, we had to rent a hotel room to knock out all the orders because we used a hot glue gun to put. I had this cool little gimmick, you guys. So here's the thing I did. I was worried about, this will actually be really helpful for a lot of you guys who are worried about competitor products that might be very, very similar. So that's what I was worried about. I was like, I'm just buying the airsoft BB. Someone could come along and literally recreate this product. The only thing that would be different is the name and the label. And so I was like, what can I do with the product to make it extra unique, to really differentiate it from anyone else who's going to come along? And I had this idea for something I called the caching cap. If you're not familiar with kind of stoner lingo, to cache something is to like empty out the ash from your pipe or your bong bowl type of deal. So a caching cap was essentially a little mini ashtray / poker that stoners could use to clear out their bong bowls, because this was a product that you would pour the beads into a bong. And to make the caching cap, we bought paper clips. We undid one side of the paper clip, bent it up, and then glued the bottom underneath the liner of the jars of the beads that we had. So it looked, and then we put the liner back on. So it looked like it came that way to people. They didn't know that we were, gluing them on there. So basically like this. Ben got me so we'd go like this, flip it up, just like that, okay? And we'd glue this part underneath, right on the cap, on the plastic part, and then we'd slip the liner, boop, right over the top of it. So now it was like this cool little mini ashtray caching cap that you could use with your jars. And it was actually a really big hit. But again, I was thinking about the creativity level. This was my first business. I was not thinking about the amount of extra work that would go into having to make these caching caps. And boy, was it a lot when we would get orders. Also, because I never thought that we would get orders of 1,000 jars of diffuser beads. And then we did. And I was like, yes, because we were making money, but also crap, now I have to make all these caching caps, 1,000 caching caps, plus put 1,000 labels on the jars, plus sort beads for 1,000 worth of jars. And it was a lot of work. But where we made one of the biggest mistakes that we've ever made in business, and that I've ever made in business, was after we had been doing really well and gotten a couple bigger wholesale orders, I was like, we got to do a trade show. I know that trade shows are a big deal. I know that's where businesses make a lot of money. Let's do one. And we did some research and found a trade show, but clearly didn't do enough research, because essentially this trade show where we spent all of our money, and I'll tell you the story where we got the money, and ended up only selling, I would say, 25% back of our booth costs. So we lost 75% of the money on the show. And then we're in a dire situation. So the way that we got that money, we had about $1,000, maybe $1,500 saved up from sales, and from the extra profit from sales. But the booth cost was $2,000. And then there was, getting over there. We need to get some banners, some things like that for the trade show. So I thought it was a good idea for us to sell our RV, literally the thing we'd been living in, and had no other home options. I was just so confident, you guys. I had that young person, like entrepreneur, deathly confidence where I was like, we're going to crush this. Nothing can stop us. If this show is as they advertise, we're going to blow it out the water based on the response we've gotten so far with our product, and just calling and emailing and using our Instagram account. In person, we'll crush it. And what happened was the show was really, really falsely advertised. Almost nothing that they promoted ended up coming to fruition. It was a horrible, horrible show, the worst one I've ever been to. And we lost a lot of money and then didn't have any money to buy back our RV. And so now we didn't have an RV. We had our dogs. We had our amount of stuff. And we ended up living out of this really, really, really shady motel that took cash. And, I didn't ask any type of questions down in Los Angeles motel. And we just snuck our dogs in. It was a no dogs, no pet policy. We snuck them in. Forced them to, I'm not proud of this, but forced them to pee in the room because we didn't want to get caught. Lived there for like 3 and 4 days before we kind of just took our rental car all the way up to Seattle. So like technically stole it, but then we returned it when we got back to Seattle, and figured life out from there. Let's see a couple of these comments. I really appreciate you guys all watching. I want to give a couple shout outs here. Lori, how's it going? The Wizard of Oz is running for president. That's an interesting statement. Tell me more. That sounds interesting. Let's see. We got, let's see, if I'm pronouncing this wrong, I apologize. Jagdish in the house. What's good? Cheryl, thank you. Yasir, how's it going? That's super cool. Lori says she's building a business selling t-shirts to the homeless. For the homeless. Read that wrong there. That's super cool. What kind of artists are you guys? So I'm obviously a huge proponent of artists starting up their own businesses. I'm an artist. I'm a glass blower. And I think there's so much to be learned from entrepreneurship and starting up your own business. I think there's a lot to be gained from the artist side in terms of improving your artwork, getting other people's perspectives. So one thing that's traditionally done in art schools, and I was fortunate again to be a part of this, is something called critique. And critique is a structured process where you bring your finished pieces to a group of other artists and they tell you things that are wrong with your piece. It's kind of like a roast, but in a very professional manner. And it's a really, really helpful process. It's uncomfortable to have just like kind of your piece, because you're not really supposed to say, you can say good things, but that's not at all the point. The point is really to kind of rip it apart from your perspective as another artist so that the original artist presenting their work can take these different perspectives into consideration and improve their work in a continual manner. So I think that any artist, once you graduate from a school setting and you're not really around other people who are naturally going to critique your work, it's really important to get other people, random people, to give you their opinions so that you can get a really objective viewpoint of how people are perceiving your artwork, how they're connecting with it. Because even if you're 100% making the art for you, you still there's still this connection to the world that your art has. There's still this connection to other people that you're probably trying to achieve. And I think as you can perfect that, it really becomes more satisfying and fulfilling. And again, you build a better audience, you get more customers, you tend to make more money. Good morning, Jeremy. How's it going? I hope you guys are having a great day. So that was my story. I'll tell you about how I got out of that stolen car, no money with the dog situation tomorrow. So you guys hop on back if you enjoyed this. Please feel free to share it. I'm going to post up a little banner real quick across the screen. If you guys would like to contact me, please reach out via email. I'm also looking for some really interesting guests. I'm planning some upcoming really fun shows. I do a daily live here on LinkedIn, also across to my Facebook groups and YouTube at 5 p.m. PST. Feel free to put it in your calendar. I promise to be as regular as possible and notify people if I'm ever going to, miss that time frame or have to move it around for any reason. So I'm going to be doing the 5 to 6 p.m. live daily. That's going to be the regular scheduled show, so to speak. And then I'm going to have lots of fun little random pop-up lives like this one to either share a singular story, to have on a guest share their quick story, or if anything really exciting happens that I'm able to share with you guys.